Yet another What Do You Think? Brought to you by Abdul in the Bushes and Praxis.
Mohammed, the prophet of Islam, did not claim to do miracles as did the great prophets before him that he claims to be a successor of. But Muslims claim that he did perform one of the most formidable and astounding miracles, the glorious Quran. Here is a book from the God Allah breathed from Angel Gabriel's to Muhammad. It was then infallibly copied word for word, sentence by sentence, without dot or dash missing. No book has rolled off of any printing press here on earth more perfect than this Quran. The Quran claims to be perfect in every way. Its beauty, style, clarity, originality, history, geography, science, and astronomy. No human author can equal the Quran. The word Quran means speech, and specifically in this context, the speech of Allah. It can also mean a word, verse, a chapter, or the whole physical book. Quran 85:21 and 22 says the following: Any mistakes? Not one. Eternal and unchangeable, as Allah himself who has preserved it and keeps it from all error even to this day. This is a tall order for any book to live up to. Does the Quran come close to meeting its own high standard? There are so many historic errors in the Quran that it is almost impossible to include them all and their details in a short video. According to the Quran, as the very word of the God Allah, the Quran apparently does not and cannot have any errors. In this video, we will cover mostly historic errors. Let us see what the infinite, immutable, self-sufficient, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, wise, faithful, good, just, merciful, gracious, loving, holy, perfect, glorious Allah did. Mary is part of the Trinity. In Quran 5:116, the infinite, immutable, self-sufficient, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, wise, just, merciful, glorious, God Allah says, O Jesus, the Son of Mary, did you say to men, worship me and my mother Mary, as gods in disparagement of Allah? He, Jesus, replied, Glory to you. Never could I say what I had no right to say. Had I said such a thing, you would indeed have known it. You know what is in my heart. You I know not what is in yours. For you know in full all that is hidden. Allah asks Jesus if he said that people should worship him and Mary as gods. Jesus replies and says in effect that if Allah was God, he should know. Christian doctrine has never held Mary to be a part of the Trinity. Therefore, Allah and Muhammad are ignorant. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was born in the 1st century BC, and Muhammad and Allah confuse her with Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron who lived 1,500 years earlier. Quran 19:27. Quran 66:12. When the Jews confront Muhammad, he tries to correct his error. See Sahih Muslim 25:53-26. However, for naming purposes, Mary is not a descendant of Moses or Aaron. The Jews call Uzair a son of Allah. Quran 9:30. The Quran describes the Jews as practitioners of polytheism by stating that they hold Uzair, Ezra, to be the son of God. However, historically, Judaism has been a strict form of monotheism, and this event cannot be found in the Torah. Quran 87:9-19, Allah and Muhammad claim Abraham and Moses spoke in the Torah about roasting in the great hellfire. Hell. However, the Torah itself contains no references to hell. The Quran presents a version of the Syrian legend of Alexander the Great as a great king who helps a tribe of people build a massive wall of iron and copper between two mountains, and the tribes it traps will remain in place until the Day of Judgment. However, modern satellites and near-comprehensive exploration of the Earth's surface have yet to reveal any trace of such massive structure, as well as the billions of Gog and Magog trapped behind it. Quran 39:67-70. Allah claims Alexander the Great to be a prophet of Islam. However, he was a homosexual and an idol worshiper. The Jews tricked Muhammad into thinking he was an Old Testament prophet. Historians commonly credited the invention of coat mail to the Celts in the 3rd century BC. In the Quran, David in the 10th century BC is taught by Allah how to make long coats of chain mail, Quran 34:10-11 and 21:79. The first historical reference to crucifixion as a method of execution is from 500 BC. The Quran, by contrast, tells of crucifixions at the time of Moses approximately 1500 BC, as well as Joseph approximately 2000 BC. Quran 1241. The Quran 2095 states that Moses dealt with a Sumerian. However, the Sumerians did not exist until well over half a millennium after Moses is supposed to have existed. Samaria was a district in central Israel, as mentioned in the New Testament. The Quran speaks of Pharaoh, singularly, and as a proper noun without the definite article, as if it was a name, which means that Allah was unaware of many pharaohs and that it was a title, like king, and not a name. The Quran and Hadith think the Nabatean rock tombs were homes and palaces. These are Petra, and were made by the Nabateans from the 2nd century BC to the 2nd century AD, not before the time of the pharaohs. Allah should really know better. Surah Yusuf mentions that the caravan that rescued Joseph from the pit sold him to an Egyptian for a low price, a few dirhams. The dirham coins did not exist in ancient Egypt. Quran 1220. In Quran 28, the story of the Israelites in Egypt is completely fantastical and mixes in other legends. The errors here are too many to list. 5 gods are incorrectly named as from the time of Noah. These are mentioned in one verse. Strangely, according to Ibn Abbas, these happen to be idols worshipped by Arab tribes at the time of Muhammad. The name John comes from the Hebrew name Yohanan. Several figures in the Old Testament bore this name. The Quran asserts that nobody before John the Baptist, Yahya in Arabic, bore his name. Quran 19:7, we have given the same name to none before him. Neither Muhammad nor Allah knew the name meant. YHWH is gracious. Stupid Allah named this prophet after Jehovah. YHWH, the Jewish God. The Quran state that outside the vicinity of Arabia there existed cities and tribes destroyed by Allah for rejecting his messengers and Islam. Research, by contrast, has revealed that historical cities and tribes were only gradually ruined by natural disasters, famine, wars, migration, or neglect, often taking years or decades to unfold. Muslim scholars maintain that a long-existing, ancient mosque was present in Jerusalem during Muhammad's lifetime. Historical research has, however, found this not to be the case. The mosque was built long after Muhammad died. Muhammad could not therefore have flown there on a winged donkey. Haman in ancient Egypt. The Quran places a man called Haman as an enemy of the Jews, being a court official, military commander, and high priest of the Pharaoh in ancient Egypt in the time of Moses. False. A man also called Haman with similar characteristics also appears in the biblical book of Esther, which is not set in Egypt, but Syria. MOMO and Allah steal the narrative of judges and kings of Israel all wrong, sometimes with little awareness of chronological knowledge. The Quran tells us of a powerful prophet, Solomon, son of David, Quran 27:16, who was granted a kingdom by Allah the likes of which would never be seen after. No, Solomon's kingdom was localized around Judea and Samaria. The Quran also claims that Solomon had a flying mat that carried thousands of his kingdom, talked to birds and mute ants. Again, the Jews tricked MOMO into believing legend bedtime stories. The Quran contains a surah, Quran 105:1-5, relating to Allah destroying an army of elephant before the life of Muhammad via birds throwing stones of baked clay at them. However, see my video number 69, Mecca did not exist till some 270 years after Muhammad. Jesus was allegedly not crucified, Quran 4:157. However, almost all historians, atheists and Christians alike, confirm the crucifixion as the most well-attested event in all of history. In Surah 18, Allah tells us that Alexander the Great traveled so far west, he found the place where the sun sets, in a muddy spring. We know that this story was a popular story during Muhammad's lifetime. The story was even circulating in a Syriac work titled The Glorious Deeds of Alexander towards the end of Muhammad's life. And Muhammad inserts this story as the words of Allah in the Quran. See my video number 68, Beautiful Sunset. The Jews asked Muhammad how many were the 7 sleepers. Weeks later he returns and does not know how many people fell asleep in the cave. The original story was fiction written by Bishop Stephen of Ephesus around the middle of the 5th century. This lands up in the Quran. According to Surah 19, Jesus began preaching as soon as he came out of Mary's womb. This story comes from the 6th century Arabic infancy gospel. Muhammad includes this in the Quran. The account of Jesus giving life to clay birds in Surah 5 comes from a 2nd century Gnostic work called the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. Muhammad swallowed this story as well. Even the pagans of Mecca were better at recognizing fiction than Muhammad was. Surah 6, verse 25 of the Quran says, "When they come to you to argue with you, the unbelievers say, 'These are nothing but fables of the men of old.'" So according to the Quran itself, pagans were telling Muhammad that the stories in the Quran were known fables. They were myths. They were fairy tales.
Certified, authentic, Honda Draw.